IVM.
Hey, welcome to Shunya 1, episode 43. Today we're talking to Utsav Agarwal and we're going into a lot of stuff about how he has hustled his way into getting into the Uber India team and of course a lot of his journey as a founder himself and then the challenge of working in sort of startup environment and going through a lot of ups and downs. I think we got some really interesting stuff out of this conversation.
Yeah,
Amit, how's it going?
it's going well. It was a great conversation. I thought it was really interesting. Especially his fascination with the whole sharing economy stuff. I
Yeah.
thought that was actually really insightful, and I think people are really going to enjoy listening to that stuff.
Awesome. But what's up? I think we had a really fun episode last week as well.
Yes, we did.
Thank you so much for everyone pitching in and how you all love talking about product growth. Mona was also very helpful and insightful, giving us a lot of feedback. Hope you guys jumped in on Slack as well.
Yeah, and actually, Mona actually was our first guest who's actually put out a call on Slack saying, hey, people, please send her feedback on what you think and, let her know what, let me read out the comment. Hey, guys, listen in and please share any feedback you have. Critical ones are especially highly welcome. So, that was actually pretty cool, and I hope that we're going to get more of our guests to participate in the Slack like that.
Awesome.
Besides that, we also had a couple of other comments. Kalpak D wrote in to us saying, big fan of the podcast. The growth science episode with Mona Gandhi was insightful. I would like to know Doshi Amit and IVM story as well. Sheila, please interview the other guy in the room for a couple of minutes. Don't know if that's really gonna happen so much, but hey, any questions you have, please, reach out. I'm happy to help and happy to answer anything that you guys want to know about this stuff. And we had another comment from Pawan Limo, which is a pretty interesting name. Not trying to defend the growth hacker argument per se, but somehow the word hacker gives a sense of achieving too much with too little. Kind of like seeing an underdog. Almost romantic, but yeah, definitely growth science is more disciplined. I think that's an interesting way to look at it, but I think the reason why we're all a little kind of not so keen with the hacker word is because hacker implies like a jugaad to this when it's actually a more systemic process.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think in the transition period when people didn't know what growth was, it made sense, but now definitely it's sort of distilled into a science. And of course, yeah, listen to the episode if you want to know more.
Yeah.
But let's jump into what we have today. And before that, have a quick word from our sponsor.
Hey everybody, we'd like to welcome a new sponsor, Storytel. Storytel is an audiobook streaming services for mobile and tablets. If you haven't heard audiobooks before and you're a podcast listener, audiobooks are probably right up your alley. You can enjoy your favorite titles when you travel, exercise, or cook. There are great books over here, like the Percy Jackson series is available if you want like some new fantasy, or if you want to go for something old school or classic. You can get either Bram Stoker's Dracula, or you could get Edgar Rice Burroughs' John Carter series. Download Storytel today from the App or Play Store and enjoy a free 14-day trial. That's Storytel, Storytel, Storytel from the App Store or Play Store. Download today.
So today we're here with Utsav Agarwal, the head of expansion, EMEA and APAC for Glovo, which is a cool new app based out of Barcelona.
Yeah, that's right.
And you've just moved there after being a founder yourself and hustling your way in the Indian startup ecosystem. Most recently, of course, you were one of the first few launchers for Uber in India when they started, and pretty much led their expansion into this region. And before that, you were doing a cool startup, which I want to also talk about. And I think that's where we actually met. I think we were literally in the same coffee shop in Bombay, discussing our own individual startup ideas, and I overheard you and said hello. So why don't you but take us through the story even before that?
I'm an engineer by academics, passed out in 2007, but what I figured during engineering is I'm not learning anything. I was getting really good grades. I passed it with distinction. I only had one KT in engineering, which was Viva KT. The professor failed me because I had really long hair.
Wow.
But that's kind of where the education system in India is. During my engineering, I basically got really into music and started managing this band called Scepter. They were a thrash metal band back in the day. They'd won this rock event in 2003 called Independence Rock at Rang Bhavan, right
Yes,
next to Xavier's.
Yes, of course. Any engineering student would know that.
Even non-engineering students know about
It got
Independence Rock.
shut down. Farhad
Yes.
Wadia was pissed off about it. But anyways, I passed out in 2007 and I'm like, what should I do? And my first job was at Whistling Woods as a marketing executive. A couple of things happened there. First, I was late to the interview and they give me a call while I'm on the way. My interview is at 11:30 and I'm still on my way at 12:30. And they give me a call like, where are you? And I'm like, yeah, I'm on my way. But aren't you supposed to be at 11:30? I'm like, no, 1 p.m. There was no Google Calendar that time. I could bullshit my way through.
Oh.
I got hired. I go into the job first day and I'm like, this is just not my thing. And next day, I don't wake up on time. I get a call from my boss and he's like, aren't you coming in? And I'm like, no, I quit.
The next day? Wow.
So I basically figured I really need to be doing something which I'm passionate about. And I just started reaching out to record labels because those were the jobs available in the music industry. Reached out to EMI Music, got a job there. My first job at EMI Music was to transcribe all the videos so that we could send that to the certification authority and they could give the certificate for it to be put on TV.
Wow. When you say transcribe, literally listen to the songs and write the lyrics.
Yeah. And I loved it. And you'll watch like concerts, unreleased concerts. And if there were F words, you will go back to the like sound guy or someone in the studio and like beep that out before it goes to the certification authority.
Wow.
Did that for 4 months. Got a full-time job as a marketing executive. Did that for a few months. I basically worked in the music industry for about 1.5 years, 2 years. I dabbled in everything. I'm like, I'll do anything that comes my way, be it like producing events, covering events. Just, I like the industry. I want to work for it.
Right.
Okay, so after that, what was the next step? I'm like, I want to go to Los Angeles. That's the mecca of the music industry. Right. I figured out the cheapest course to do there is at UCLA Extension. It was $8,000 for an entire year. So I apply, get in. What I figured out later, that the course was, we had classes thrice a week, only for an hour and a half. And I was...
UCLA Extension's community college, isn't it?
No, it's not. It's private. It's along with UCLA. Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's an extension where they only issue certificates. They don't issue degrees.
But isn't that community college?
No. Our community college is Santa Monica.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still private, but I don't know why is it so cheap.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't have and I figured that there is no value of a degree in music industry.
Right.
It just like I'm not going to get a job because hey, I've done it from
postgraduate diploma in
music business, right? It's all about connections.
And I mean the skill and the knowledge of whatever you need to know.
Exactly. Yeah. So the first year, it was a 1-year program. I was playing beer pong a lot more than I was doing anything else. I loved the sport. It's a sport. It's not a sport. Sure. It's not a sport of drinking beer. It's a sport of bad mouthing the other team.
Okay.
That's if you're not doing that, you're not playing beer pong.
That is true.
So, and after that, I completed if you study in US for a year, you get like a 9-month OPT, optional practical training period.
Okay.
I did again a bunch of random gigs, marketing for whatever I could get to just pay my bills. And when that came to an end, I wouldn't get a work visa because people won't sponsor me. And that's when I realized if you want to be in US, get a work visa, be either an engineer or an MBA from a good school. Right? So I decided to come back. I have 60 days to leave the country. I'm in LA. I throw all my stuff at the back of my car and I'm like, I'm just going to take off and see the country before I leave. So I do this road trip across LA to New York is 3,000 miles if you drive straight through. But I zigzagged my way where I drove for 10,350 miles. Crap. LA to Bombay as the boat flies is 8,700 miles. I could have driven back.
Wow.
Slept in my car on a lot of nights, slept in hostels. Spent time in a lot of these small American cities where like the total population is like 500 or 1,000 people only. Interesting times, lot of interesting stories from there. But what I kind of realized is whenever I spend time at like a place, the location I was at and what I was seeing kind of dictated almost what music I was listening to. And the thought just kept going in my head. It's like a Red Hot Chili Peppers comes from Los Angeles. There's a reason for that because it's hot, like it's nice and sunny. A Radiohead comes from London because it's cold and depressing. Death metal comes from Northern Europe because they don't see the sun for 6 months. And I'm like, can you really tap into this kind of data and give a platform for people to share what they're listening to along with location, what they're seeing, picture, maybe a thought, a comment. So I came back, zero idea about how to go about it. I found Twitter to be really, really, really useful to just connect with people that time because I knew no one. And I started going for events. So we met at Fellas, but I think we had exchanged a few tweets even before that, right? Yeah. And you had connected me to a lot of like iOS developers or just shown me the way, okay, do this or do that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
a small community of startup folks, right? So you try to always help whoever you can in whatever way. And,
right. Yeah. But I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
So that was great. I end up going for this Startup Saturday event at SP Gen,
right,
which happens every month, at least did back in the day. I meet the guys behind Mob Me, Vivek Francis, to be precise. He sees something and he's like, let's talk. And within 2 months, he's like, okay, we will use our team to build your product. So Normalizing was that. What I didn't realize at that point is hiring is hard. Right? So on a slight tangent, there are a lot of people who say there are no jobs available. I'll tell you one thing from good companies. They say there's no people available. Yeah. Good talent is scarce, right? Yeah. And just getting talent was hard, especially engineers. Did the product out of Kerala for about a year, out of Bangalore for another year, where I tried to build my own team, stayed in an apartment. I think the product came out really well in terms of design and functionality, but I was too married to the idea and didn't realize the use case wasn't strong enough. My USP was we are gamifying music sharing, like Foursquare did for location, GetGlue did for movies. And this is 2013. I think it was already old. Like Foursquare was looking to move into Swarm. They'd actually discontinued their gamification for a while before they got it back on.
Yeah.
Right? So we started hitting I started hitting a wall. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs go through that. And there's no right or wrong. You hear both sides to the story. A story like a Pinterest where if you stick around, keep banging your head on the wall, you will solve it and you will succeed. And others where you just give up, move around the wall and come back to it. I decided to take the latter. Uber happened after that. At that point, I basically decided that I want to work for one of two companies, Uber or Airbnb. Nice. I'm a huge fan of collaborative consumption, and I became a fan of it after watching this TED video from an Australian woman called Rachel Botsman.
Yeah, I think I know that one.
2010 or 2011, right? She talks about just sharing economy and how a drilling machine is only used for 15 minutes in its lifetime. But everyone in a neighborhood still owns some kind of a drilling machine. Why do you need to own one? And I was just, again, smitten by it. Right. I'm like, I need to go and work towards it because this is how we're going to live in the years to come.
This is the way the world will grow.
Right? And Uber was growing. I knew a friend working at Uber. One thing led to the other. It's actually interesting how I got my job at Uber as well. I got rejected first. But then I just kept writing to the guy who rejected me because I said I have nothing to lose.
That's true.
I mean, not twice daily, not as a stalker, but like once every 2 weeks. And then I decided one last email. It was a short email, and the last line of the email said, I'd failed the analytics test or something. I'd failed that. So my last line of the email said, I can teach myself analytics in a few hours, but you can't teach someone hustle. Okay. He gave me another shot, and I was hired in 2 weeks.
Awesome. And that's the lesson of everything. I think perseverance, confidence, and writing good emails and following up on emails. Yeah. This is all part of the hustle.
Absolutely. Yeah. How to keep your emails short and to the point. Yeah. Uber was a lot of fun for about 3.5 years. Did India launched a lot of cities in India, and did Bangladesh, which is a whole different ball game. I can get into Bangladesh, but maybe slightly later. But Uber got to a point, and I think it's natural progression for most companies where it didn't feel like a startup. And one thing I've realized about myself is I can't be at a big company. I can't be at a corporate. So I moved on when it stopped feeling like fun, and I'm like, what's next? I started looking for companies globally who had raised Series B or Series C. Not a Series A because that's too uncertain. Series D, little too big for me. Processes are already built. Not going to be so much fun. And came across this company in Barcelona. I basically wrote directly to the CEO, Oscar. He responded. We got on a couple of calls. I won't even call them interviews because I was just telling him what I can come and do for you. And he's like, come on board, man. Let's do this together.
Awesome.
So yeah, that's been my story. And short or long.
Wow, no, it's perfect, right? Because this is what I think when we talk to a lot of folks here. I talk to people in my network. Anyone who's sort of made it to places where they really feel they fit is because they showed all these qualities of persevering, knowing what they want and don't want.
Yeah.
Taking these roads which are a little non-traditional, and not being formal and restrictive and close-minded and insecure about things. And just making stuff happen for themselves. And you're a great example of that, man. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Where you've come. I do want to ask you, how many people asked you for Uber coupon codes? Because I remember I didn't.
You didn't? In the first 1 month.
I don't think I would have been able to stop myself.
A lot. And at that time, this was April 2014, when Uber was giving out like 500 rupees of like credits. Not even free. Like there's a difference between getting credits.
Uber credits.
Right? And one ride up to 500 bucks.
Yeah.
And we were just giving them out left, right, and center. But I think it stopped once people figured that I'm not responding and they're damaging their relationship with me. But it was fun. I mean, I look at it, at least they're using the product.
Yep.
And in India, the challenge was not from the user's perspective, but getting drivers to adopt to the technology, right? Like one thing I say is Uber has been a great leveler in third world markets where the drivers and the blue collar jobs have gotten respect for what they do. Yeah. Now you say thank you. I think people out here in this room have always said thank you, but the masses in general, if I take a rickshaw ride, I still say thank you at the end of it because he's not doing me a favor. He's doing me a service and I'm paying him for it.
Yeah.
And just bringing them on board onto internet. There are magical things that can happen once they have access to information.
Yeah.
Once they have a smartphone and internet. It was hard. I mean, I remember you were using Uber in the first few months, and you'll clearly recollect how hard it was for a driver to get to your location without calling you.
Yeah.
I don't blame them because, hey, try giving a smartphone to your mom or dad. My mom still can't use it. My dad can't.
They can't use a map.
Right? They can't navigate.
My mom knows how to read actual maps, like, like paper maps, because she lived in the US for a long time.
Right.
But she can't use Google Maps.
Exactly.
I don't understand that, but that's the truth.
Yeah. And they just don't want to learn.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these driver partners that Uber had picked it up really, really quickly in 2 to 3 months, which in the bigger scheme of things is
nothing.
I mean, Uber was handing out phones at the start when they launched the market just to...
Yeah, I remember that. There were a bunch of drivers with iPhones.
Exactly, right? There was a lot of that was just spend money for adoption.
I remember the first couple of months of Uber also, the cars I got, man.
Oh,
I got, oh my God, the cars I got.
Yeah.
I got an Audi Q7.
Yeah.
I got a Jag.
I actually never got a fancy car.
Oh, you're kidding me,
No,
man.
I'm like a loyal Uber guy from day one. I never got a fancy car, man.
Yeah, I'm also a loyal.
I got Innovas.
Yeah, we had the fanciest of cars.
Yeah, I got all kinds of crazy stuff. I got a Merc. I got a Beamer. I got everything you can imagine. Every car you can imagine, I got, man.
That was part of the strategy.
Yeah.
It's like get people talking about it, right?
Yeah.
And we could see that jaw drop. Like if Uber has something called slanging, it's an internal term. I can talk about it now. where we would go into a bar and just introduce people to Uber. And this is like 4 years back, right? We would just walk up to a group of people at a bar drinking and be like, hey, how are you going back home? Like, oh, I'm just going like taking a cab or using a rickshaw. I'm like, check this app out. You'll get like 600 or 800 rupees off if you use this coupon, and I can show you how it works.
Right.
And when you tap the request button, and within like 30 seconds, driver accepts and they see the car, it's like Mercedes A, and there's like, it's going to be only $400.
Yeah.
Holy moly. That jaw drop moment was priceless.
Wow.
Yeah.
And see, that is, I mean, it's all part of obviously having a great product, but also doing this massive hustle, right? You are literally putting yourself out there, talking to people on the ground, in a bar.
Yeah.
And you have to have that. You have to have the ability to do that as part of being, someone in a role like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, all startups have done it. If you read the success stories, even Airbnb, Joe Gabbia used to go and photograph the first few
Actual
apartments
homes,
in New York because he figured if the photographs look better, there'll be higher chances of people booking them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Travis has solved tickets.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there is nothing which a founder shouldn't do. I think they should do, at least in the start, and especially, as Paul Graham says, do things that don't scale in the right at the start. Like, just if you get to 100 loyal users, I mean, it's more ideological than real, but if you get to 100 loyal users who will pay and use a product day in, day out, you can easily grow from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Do things that don't scale is definitely, I mean, it's a piece of advice which is great if taken in the right way, of course. I think it also leads to, that was the other part of your story as well, right? Getting married to the idea is also something which is another, I would say, a fallout of doing things that don't scale, saying that, oh, no, this is my business and I want to ensure that even these 100 people who use it are my world.
Yeah.
So, but it's a very interesting. Unless you put yourself out there, you won't even learn what the answer to this is. So I think that's what hustle is all about.
And no one can teach you. I mean, you can hear all the advice on YouTube that
or
you
read
want.
blog posts or listen to TED Talks
Like-
or podcasts.
Podcasts, lots of podcasts.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's you who has to decide one way or the other and change. I think going to conferences, and someone said this, I think Chamat Palipatia, he's partner at Social Plus Capital. He said, don't go for networking, don't go for conferences to listen to people talk.
Yeah.
Go to conferences to network.
Yeah.
Because you can hear that shit on YouTube.
Exactly. Exactly.
Or podcasts.
Yes.
No, exactly. No, I
Yes.
wholeheartedly agree. I mean, being a founder, it was always like this. Being someone who's, if you're in the job of doing business in any sort of form, you have to always be thinking, how much am I adding to my business at this given moment? Is it somehow or the other going to affect my, for the lack of a better word, is this going to affect my revenue? Is this
the best use of my time?
Yeah. And if, as a founder, you're talking about your product, the more people use it, the more feedback you get. As a business guy, you're talking to more potential customers all the time. And so as long as you're doing that, rather than just ingesting information with no possibility of...
Sit and make notes of the PowerPoint presentations.
Or just forwarding codes on WhatsApp.
That's the art of the hustle, I think. And I think you've seen a lot of that firsthand with all these sort of gigs you've done. And of course, now at Glovo, I'm sure you'll be going to a lot of international markets and seeing the nuances of hustling over there. So I'm sure there's a lot left to experience.
Absolutely. I mean, going back to writing emails, and something which is part of my role is, I like to call it opening a new market in 7 days. If you don't know the language, if you don't know the city, can you land there and get to know the startup ecosystem inside out and understand the market in 7 days?
Yeah.
What I fall back on is the startup community. Again, I think there is this sense of brotherhood or this willingness to help. And more and more people are happy to meet and just exchange ideas if you are bringing something to the table as well.
Correct.
So to give you an idea, I was in Istanbul about 3 weeks back. It's not hard to figure out people's emails. Right. Very, very simple. I would just start writing cold emails to the most interesting startups, start getting responses and meeting them. And once you meet a few people, they lead to more and more people. And one of the most creative businesses that I came across is Istanbul doesn't have water filters. So people just order like 10 to 20 gallons of water, right? There's this one guy who comes from FMCG background. He's started a water on-demand service.
Wow.
And he's doing extremely well. Also, what happens in that market is there are 300 water brands, and the biggest brand only has 5% market share. He's able to monetize by playing them.
Wow.
For me, it was just mind-blowing. I looked at it and I'm like, you've built a business of delivering water? Manufacturing water, I get. Right? That's been there. Like, delivering water, I'm like, wow, that's incredible, right? Like, just the kind of businesses that people can come up with.
Yeah.
And coming back to India, hats off to the guys from Dunzo.
Yep.
Right? Bangalore, Pune, managing to raise 12 million from Google.
Google themselves,
Yeah.
yes.
Starting off in Bangalore. I think they started off on WhatsApp or Facebook.
Yep.
Right? And then they moved on to an app. And just the service they're able to provide, it's exceptional.
Yep. Yeah, the on-demand and sharing economy, all in one, I think is going to rule the world. So
hopefully
we're seeing more and more examples of how this really helps out. And it's all part of figuring out this unique little bit of hustle you can do and finding that gap, which addresses all of these users' concerns.
What do you think about the bike sharing startups? Not the motorbikes, the
actual ride. Yeah.
The OFOs, the mobikes.
Here's my thing about just sharing generally, right? I think sharing is generally it's something that's going to work mostly, but I feel like the cost involved in sharing you need to save a lot of money.
Absolutely.
That needs to be the thing, right? I mean, so I don't know if a bicycle in India is the space where it would really make sense, because what does a bicycle cost?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, like, I think I said this on one of the episodes earlier, but in my last office, like, one of the office boys needed a bicycle. I bought him a bicycle. It cost 850 rupees. What sharing is left here?
Yeah. No, I agree. Completely agree.
And so for me, Uber, I don't have to buy a car.
Yeah.
Airbnb, I don't need to take a hotel.
Yeah.
You know, so if the base value of the thing that you're sharing is high, it makes sense.
Right.
But if that value is low, then at that point, like, I don't see the point of sharing, something that costs $50. That doesn't make sense.
Also, another thing, and it's just my perspective with bike sharing startups. India is a market with its weather conditions.
Yeah.
It's not meant for bikes. Like, would you come in this really fab-looking, well-dressed, right? Like, you'll be sweaty as hell.
Yeah.
You would never want to ride a bike. Maybe you'll want to ride a bike on a Saturday or Sunday as a workout.
Yeah.
But not as a daily means of commute.
Yeah, I agree.
It's just interesting how this will play out.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, I'm skeptical about bike sharing working in India because, like, again, who uses bikes? You're right. I mean, like, the richer consumer is not really going to use bikes on a regular basis. They're going to do it for exercise. And the poorer consumer, I mean, they want that thing with them when they want it, right? I mean, like, also, if you're somebody who needs a bike to get around, you're not going to go and share a bike, right? You're going to get a bike. It just, I don't know. I find it tough.
Well, we'll not know until
it happens.
Until then, bike sharing is the new food delivery. So
It could be.
Food tech.
food tech.
Where there is no tech.
Yeah. So until maybe a year from now, we'll be talking to someone who is a bike sharing unicorn founder.
It could happen.
Could happen.
Even Ola and Zoom Car have launched it. Let's see. It's interesting. It's interesting times.
I think Ola and Zoom Car's other businesses make so much more sense. I don't get this. I just don't. To me, it just seems like
take a bike till the cab because the cab can't reach you. It's stuck in traffic. So take a bike on the footpath and get to the cab.
And then where do you leave the bike? How does the bike get back into the system? I mean, like,
doesn't matter. It's all GPS. You drop it anywhere.
And so then somebody has to go and collect it.
No, someone else will pick it up and share.
But what's happening
that's
in
the whole point. That's how OFOs work.
Oh, okay, that's how that works.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're getting into a lot of regulatory problems with that model in most countries and cities.
Yeah, I would think so. I mean, like
there are bike graveyards and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like if you have that kind of a system over here, there would be like so many bikes just lying in weird places.
And vandalism.
Yeah.
I would just go and, like, not me, but people are going to destroy.
I think we're going to find out soon enough.
Your Uber loyalty is strong.
On that note,
I'm invested.
We're gonna take a quick break and come back and talk some more.
Over 47% of online users in India have experienced harassment at some point. So if it's two of us inside this recording studio, chances are pretty high that one of us has faced abuse at some point. How do we tackle this? What do we need to do better? Come, let's learn together. Join me on Akanksha Against Harassment at IVM Podcasts every Thursday. Let's learn how to make online a safe place together.
All right, welcome back. We left off on our bike sharing discussion, but what I want to come back to and talk to Utsav about is, so being a founder, right? I mean, being a founder, going through all the motions of being a founder, one thing is learning the hustle.
Yeah.
The other thing is, I think we were talking earlier about how the hustle also comes from a little bit of desperation, right?
Yeah.
You need to be really desperate to make things work, to sort of learn how to hustle your way in.
Yeah.
And a lot of that being desperate, again, comes from being distraught and being depressed and being like at the end of the world and the end of, you're out of ideas, you're out of what to do. So, I mean, you've done a bunch of stuff over the years. So what can you share about your inputs on this?
One of the reasons that I shut down my startup was I was depressed for a few months, just not physically, but mentally. Mm-hmm. And that is just like, you can't wake up in the morning. You don't wake up you wake up basically feeling tired. I couldn't focus and read an email.
Yep.
Right? It's bad. And that's where I came to terms with it. And I started reading up about it. And I came across this article, which is like 5 years old. It's on Inc. It's called The Psychological Price of Entrepreneurship. Longish article. And one of the pictures that is there, it's a guy sitting on top of a lion. And what it says is the people outside are looking at this guy and thinking he's brave. He's sitting on top of a lion.
Yeah.
But he's thinking, how do I save myself from being eaten?
It's true.
Right? And I think the startup community globally, we tend to never kind of say or acknowledge our shortcomings to someone we meet out, to an outsider. The general answer to how's the business doing is, awesome. Hey man, I'm crushing it. Right? It's awesome. I'm doing really well. But you don't have money to pay your employees. I couldn't pay my employees for 2 months and I was living with them. So I think I think even Sam Altman, he did an article on depression and how to cope with it. I think it's becoming more and more open. At least in US, it's always been around, but in India, I'm seeing more and more people going to shrinks.
It's more recent that it's been talked about.
Right.
It's more recent that even people, like you just said, like the acknowledgement of failure itself is something which is, it started with the Valley. I think it's being more and more adopted that it is okay to fail. It is okay to talk about failing. It is in fact very useful to do a post-mortem of why you failed and help others with it. So in hand with that, I think the psychological pressures of what you went through is also something people are talking about slowly.
It's, and I think as an outsider, again, who's getting into the startup, who wants to do a startup for the first time, it's so glorified.
Yeah.
Because what are you watching? You're watching the movie Facebook. You're watching the show Silicon Valley.
And I want to be this.
Right? And you come into Dirt and you're like, no, it's nothing like that. Man, this is so much harder.
There's a culture of bravado around it as well, right? I mean, like
completely.
And that I think is also damaging in its own way.
I completely agree.
It's great because it does pep you up. It keeps you motivated initially, right? When you have that little bit of motivation yourself, you tend to sort of join in that whole bravado of that you're doing something awesome.
You need it, right? I mean, like how, because I mean, like part of what you're doing is you got to bring a whole bunch of people along with you.
Yeah.
So all of that uncertainty has to be kind of hidden.
Yeah.
You can't really put that forward.
Correct. But at the same time, the reality check is what actually hits you, right? When you start to do reality checks of where I am, like what I've left behind, and what
incomings versus outgoings.
Yes, and the kind of, it's not always, see, one is definitely the financial aspect of it. Second is, I mean, a lot of things take a toll on you, right? The fact that you're putting in all the hours, the fact that you're alienating your friends and family to a certain extent. I mean, you're potentially alienating some career prospects which you could have taken or whatever, right? Like all of these things start to weigh in on the decisions you've made and sort of add up. So what do you think is the best way out, and what helped you?
I mean, I just decided to quit, as I said, move on to Uber, which was a massive change for me and kind of got me out of the hole that I found myself for a few months. But I mean, to each his or her own. Please go to a shrink, right? Like, just don't feel embarrassed about it. I've gone to a shrink multiple times. Absolutely fine.
And the conversations really helped you understand what you're going through,
right? Because that's their job. Yeah. It's like, hey, if you're not a developer, you can't develop an iOS app.
However much you think you can,
right? It's the same thing. They are specialized to handle those situations. Find yourself a good shrink, and please go visit.
But that's also another thing, right? There's this entire taboo around this whole the business of treating mental trauma or mental depression in any format. I think that's a fundamental problem we all are culturally built up to not acknowledge, right?
वो पागल है.
हाँ नहीं ये पागल नहीं है तू ज़्यादा सोच रहा है or like whatever.
But I think there is a certain amount of change around that. I feel. I mean, like again, I come from conservative Gujarati family, just generally, right? And I think that there is a little more openness to this kind of stuff than there was like 10 years ago. I mean, just a lot of it is television and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like psychology is very normalized on TV, but I definitely have seen a difference in that because I remember like 12 years ago or something like that, I had a friend who had a issue with substance abuse, and I wanted to take him to a shrink, right? And the reactions at that point in time were just like, no, what are you talking about? That's not needed. Da, 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 da. Lock him in a room, he'll figure it out. Da, da. You know what I mean? Like that was kind of the reactions you got then. Similar situation happened a couple of years ago, and in that case, everybody was like, you know, it was
rehab, shrink.
Yeah. So I mean, like I feel like there's definitely been a change in how people look towards it. It's still not where we want it to be, but there's definitely a change, especially in urban spaces.
Yeah. And I'm glad it's happening because I've read a decent chunk about it. It's 1 out of 6 people suffer from mental depression, bits and pieces. And there's a lot of good content available on the internet as well. Just please go read about it if you're feeling so. And the one way to differentiate, at least for me, is sadness is for a day or two. If you feel sad for a prolonged period of time, there's something off. You're probably depressed.
Yeah. No, so it's also this acknowledging that it's happening to you, then taking the next steps. I think all of this is important, and more stories which people share that this work, they acknowledge this and they got help. I think more people will sort of. So I think that's also
part of the reason why, right? I mean, like mental health education is kind of self-perpetuating because part of going through mental health treatment is talking about what you're going through. Right. So the more people who talk about it, the more kind of normalized it becomes just generally across the population. So I think that kind of helps as well there.
Correct. No, so, and I think it should be one of the things which founder needs to acknowledge if it happens to him or her. And just like the art of the hustle, it's something you come to accept terms with if it happens to you. So
it's the highs and lows.
Exactly. And that's what being an entrepreneur is all about.
Another thing, at least I get a question. I sometimes tell people when they want to join my team at Glovo in expansion or even at Uber is as a launcher. I spent a total of 35 to 40 days in Bombay in 3.5 years. So basically, you don't have a social life, a consistent social life. You're on the road.
Yeah, you're not rooted in one place.
Yeah. And that do can impact you negatively, maybe in short phases, and hamper your relationships.
Yeah, your personal life, absolutely.
Yeah, right? Like if you're married, maybe it's not the best gig for you. Get something which is, right, more like based out of one city, do travel for 10, 15 days, but not 28 days.
Yeah.
So you have to kind of take in those things and value and kind of decide for yourself what's the right job for you.
Yeah.
A lot of people just get into the wrong job and destroy themselves.
Yeah. No, absolutely. This is something which is, as a founder, as your own company, you take certain risks. You take those risks and you sort of hope that the folks around you, whether it's your peer group, your family, your personal life, whatever it is, accommodate you.
Yeah.
But definitely if you're part of an early startup team and, if you're not fully bought into the conviction of what you need, to do your job, these are things to evaluate, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you were a launcher of Uber in India, you are pretty much you're representing the company in the country.
Yeah.
So you are the whole and sole person responsible and the team responsible for its success or failure.
Absolutely.
So you really have to give it all you've got.
And and a lot of these jobs, especially at a startup, is 24/7.
Yeah.
It's not like a 9 to 5 where you can switch off. So.
Exactly. No, I think over the past 4 or 5 years that startups have been around, and we've spoken to a bunch of folks who've done 1 or 2 or multiple startups, and have seen this ecosystem sort of start from a very basic one to, not so much in Bombay maybe, but if you walk down roads in Bangalore, I'm sure there are tons of apartments full of folks burning the midnight oil and figuring their startup out. So I think all of these things will get talked about more, and people will continue to hustle, and people will continue to have breakdowns when things don't work.
Yeah, part and parcel.
Right. But coming back to the on-demand economy and this sort of hustle-driven jobs or roles you play in a startup, right? The ones where you're growing the business. You're talking about growth on the ground. I mean, in our last episode, we actually spoke about growth as a whole concept, right? I mean, growth is a whole holistic idea the company buys into, which is where product has a role to play, and sales and biz dev have a role to play, and marketing, and everyone has a role to play, contribute towards growth, right? So I think in the business and partnerships and sales sort of roles which you've been a part of, and which every company and every startup needs. In fact, it's the CEO is the only guy doing it when there's no one else.
Right.
And then you join as these sort of leading outbound roles. You are pretty much the company. You're the face and soul of it, and you have to give it your all. And with apps becoming more and more global and all over the place, you never know where your travels might take you. So definitely something which is interesting. What do you see for where do you see yourself going in with Glovo, of course, and what keeps you ticking?
So it's just the idea of, so one thing that did with Uber and Glovo is the economic opportunities that you're creating for so many more people and the flexibility. And I just don't say it as like a press quote, right?
No, but it's true. There's truth in that.
I mean, I've had drivers, I still talk to the first 2 drivers in Jaipur. I launched that market. They're on my WhatsApp. They called me home for Diwali. I was by myself in Jaipur for Diwali. I couldn't come back home. I went and had food at their place. And just seeing their life change from being a driver to being an independent entrepreneur. And things that won't matter to us, like being able to have lunch with your son or daughter, was alien to them.
Yeah.
Now they can.
Yeah. This is one of the reasons why I got so annoyed. I mean, like, little tangent, but I got so annoyed with that whole pakoda wala comment that Chidambaram made. This is the reason why it irritated me, right? So much. It's like, why are you denigrating small-scale entrepreneurship, right? You're making it sound like there's nothing there. But I mean, like, this is kind of the most powerful thing that you can do for a disadvantaged person to kind of get them into
Let them control their own time.
Yeah, exactly.
That's such a powerful thing.
Yeah. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
And I think everything, right? Like be it Uber, Uber Eats, Glovo, Swiggy, Ola, Dunzo, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like they're all doing that. And for me, that's the most rewarding part of the job. And second is just, it's good to start. I'm really good if I'm thrown into the dark and trying to build something from scratch and growing it to a certain point. The way I think about it is if I do my job well, I shouldn't be a cultural fit at Glovo in 2.5 years.
You should be a misfit. Yeah.
Right. So that's how I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, for Glovo, EMEA is a big focus area. There are a lot of interesting markets. So,
and there are there's sure other players. There are the taxi guys also in the sort of similar space who can. I mean, on demand is just increasing in every country, I think.
You got to thank Travis Kalanick. I'm a huge fan of that guy. Yeah. As much as media wants to say anything else, I don't think Mark Zuckerberg or a Jack Dorsey could have built this business.
Right.
You needed a confrontational guy. He was the right man. Yeah. Maybe not the right man right now. Like Nadara is the guy.
Exactly. There you go. After 2.5 years, you got a misfit. But I mean, like at the time, you needed that pugnacious guy who's going to go in and fight.
Yeah. He loves a good fight. Yeah. And sometimes you just need to be that personality.
Yeah. In fact, I was going to ask you what kind of role models you had for, choosing to be someone like that, but I think you already answered that.
So there are guys like, obviously, Travis that I look up to, Elon Musk, which is, come on, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Then Naval Ravikant, Chamat Palipatia. These two guys have got to a point where when they're looking at investing, they're not even thinking about return of investment. They're thinking about, are you doing something groundbreaking? I will go put my money if you're trying to solve cancer. If there is a 99% chance it'll crash, I'll still put it because, hey, you have a 1% chance of curing cancer.
Yeah.
And when you hear these guys, it's just profound at times. Naval Ravikant on crypto, sometimes it blows just over my head, but I'm like, what a guy.
Yeah.
Right?
He's saying, put money in crypto, I will put my money in crypto.
Yeah, that's a good thing about these guys. They'll never say, put money in crypto. It always starts with a disclaimer.
Right, that's right. But awesome, man. I think you with your, pretty much traveling all over the world, which you did all over the country when you were at Uber, and countries alongside India as well. And now with Glovo, I'm sure you'll be going to a whole lot of places. Maybe I'll bump into you at some of them in my Southeast Asia and Europe travels as well.
Sort out your visas and passport. I think we should all just go and give up Indian passports and get some other thing.
I think that's probably the easier way to do it.
I was talking to someone from Istanbul and they said if you put in like 100,000 euros, into like a Greece or something, you get the citizenship and you get the passport.
The US has a plan like that too.
Yeah,
I think it's $1 million.
I think it's $1 million, yeah.
Yeah.
So they said the bar.
It's $1 million or I think you need to hire 10 people. It's one of the two. Which I guess is $1 million. You need $1 million to 10 people.
In the tech space, right? $1 million, like 10 people in the tech.
Anything. You can start a store. If you
employ 10 people.
Yeah, if you employ 10 people, if you go and open a 7-Eleven, the plan.
Okay.
You take money from abroad, you take it to the US with the idea that I'm going to open a 7-Eleven over there. I'm going to invest $1 million.
Even with Trump now?
Yes, I was going to say. You never know when those rules might change.
No, but see, these are the guys who he wants, right? He wants the rich people. It's the poor that he wants to keep out.
But awesome, man. Utsav, thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, it was a pleasure.
This was, I think a whole lot of this generation of folks who are, who are going out there, putting themselves out there, whether they're a founder, whether an early team member.
Yeah.
And with the on-demand and sharing economy growing, I'm sure we'll need a lot more of folks like this who know and love to hustle.
Yeah.
And let's hope... the world sees a lot more folks like you and all around us.
Yeah. And guys, remember to check out the Slack channel, or at least join the Slack channel. Go to the website, ivmpodcast.com/junior1. Over there's a link which says join Slack. Click on that link, send us your email address, and Priyanka will send you an invite. And also, please give us a rating on iTunes or TuneIn or Stitcher or wherever you're listening to this thing. And just please give us a rating and a review. That really does help.
Yep. And Utsav, Utsav, before we let you go, why don't you shout out your Twitter handle so folks can reach out to you?
It's Utsav Agarwal, UTSAV-AGARWAL, single G.
Single G.
There's a meme around that as well.
So let's hope you can reach out to Utsav on Twitter. And of course, we hope to see him on our Slack channel as well to respond to further.
And my email
questions.
is agarwalutsav09@gmail.com if you ever want to reach out.
Right.
Yep, write a nice email and Utsav will
The
reply.
importance of email.
Yep. Thanks so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank
Talk to
you.
you next week.
He bends down to test the warm water for his bath. He comes here to quench his thirst for a hot shower and some podcasts. You can witness how he enjoys having other people talk about cool stuff in his bathroom. Indeed, it helps him with his loneliness. You can find more of his species on ivmpodcast.com, your one-stop destination where you can check out the coolest Indian podcasts. Happy listening.